London, 1533. Behind the heavy oak doors of the Queen's chambers, the air is thick with the scent of burning wax and betrayal. History remembers Catherine of Aragon as the discarded wife, a pious martyr who prayed while her crown was stolen. But what if the rosary beads in her hands were merely a distraction? Deep within the shadows of the Tudor court, a clandestine letter is being inked in blood and desperation, a plea for Spanish steel to descend upon the English coast. As Henry dreams of a new bride, his loyal queen is weaving a web of treason that will shatter the Reformation before it begins. This is the secret war for England. Before we continue, if you like the video, make sure to subscribe and like, and comment where are you from and where are you watching from. The Great Hall of Hampton Court is a cathedral of secrets, where every shadow holds a spy and every whisper carries the weight of a crown. For years, Catherine of Aragon was the portrait of the stoic martyr, the rejected wife praying in silence while the king pursued his great matter. But behind the heavy oak doors of her private chambers, the prayer beads are set aside for more terrestrial tools.
This is no longer a plea for divine intervention. It is a clinical dissection of a kingdom's legal nerves. Catherine begins her first move, not with a shout, but with a series of surgical strikes. She reaches into the very heart of the inner circle, cultivating a network of old faith loyalists who view the rise of Anne Boleyn not as a romance, but as a heresy. Gold from the Spanish coffers, smuggled in through the seams of diplomatic pouches, begins to find its way into the palms of legal clerks and low-ranking secretaries. Documents crucial to the annulment trial start to vanish. Testimonies from Rome are conveniently delayed by pirates in the English Channel. Within the court, Catherine sows seeds of doubt regarding Anne's temperament, painting the future queen as a volatile heretic who would lead England into a bloody schism. As Henry rages against the slow gears of the law, he believes his enemies are in Rome or Paris. He has no idea that the most dangerous architect of his failure is the woman sharing his table, smiling softly as she prepares the next strike against his legacy.
The air in the Great Hall of Westminster is thick, not with the scent of roasted meat, but with the cold, metallic tang of fear. Thomas Cromwell, the king's hammer, the man who promised to break the church to mend a royal marriage, stands frozen. For months, he has felt the ground shifting, whispers of Spanish gold flowing through the servants' quarters, legal precedents vanishing like smoke, and a queen whose eyes held a terrifying, silent triumph. Henry, his face a mask of bloated fury, slams a heavy hand upon the table, scattering silver goblets. The evidence presented is damning. Intercepted letters, written in a complex cipher Cromwell himself cannot crack, linking him to a fabricated Spanish treason. But the true architect of this trap isn't a foreign power. It is the woman Henry dismissed as a fading relic. Catherine has played the long game with surgical precision. She has used Cromwell's own network of spies against him, feeding them poisoned information until the king's legendary paranoia curdled into a lethal reactionary rage. Arrest him! The roar echoes against the ancient stone rafters. The tower guards move with chilling, practiced precision.
As the heavy metal shackles snap shut around Cromwell's wrists, he looks instinctively toward the Queen's gallery. There, behind the shadows of the wooden lattice, Catherine of Aragon stands motionless. She does not gloat. She simply watches the man who sought to erase her life be dragged toward the executioner's block. With Cromwell's sudden fall, the English Reformation doesn't just stall, it implodes. The Spanish plot has claimed its first great victim, and Henry, blinded by his own suspicion, has unknowingly executed the only man capable of saving his throne from the silent Iberian tide rising beneath his feet. London wakes to a different rhythm. The hammers that once tore down the sacred monasteries have fallen silent.
replaced by the haunting rhythmic chanting of the Latin Mass returning to the cobblestone streets. With Thomas Cromwell rotting in the Tower, the architect of England's schism has been exiled like a tumor. Catherine of Aragon, the woman the king thought he could discard like a used glove, is now the silent hand guiding the realm's soul back to the feet of the Pope. It is a violent whiplash reversal.
The act of supremacy, Henry's proudest declaration of absolute power, is not just repealed, it is ritually burned in the courtyards of Westminster as crowds look on in stunned silence. In the damp taverns and the high courts, the king's great matter is rewritten as a great heresy. Catherine's secret envoys, fueled by Spanish gold and clandestine papal blessings, move through the shadows. They are no longer hiding, they are hunting. The pyres are lit once more, casting long, dancing shadows across the Thames. But these flames do not burn for the Queen. They burn for the reformers. Men who once whispered in the king's ear find themselves trapped in a kingdom that has suddenly, chillingly, turned its back on the future they envisioned. Henry, isolated and increasingly paranoid, watches from the windows of Whitehall as his sovereign authority is eroded by the very woman he sought to exile. Catherine does not gloat. She simply kneels. In her private chapel, the air is thick with the suffocating scent of frankincense. She has broken the spine of the English Reformation.
The island is no longer a breakaway state. It is once again a fortress of the Holy Mother Church, secured by the iron will of a daughter of Spain. The great hall of Hampton Court, once a stage for Henry's unchecked whims, has grown cold. The king, a man broken by the very fires he stoked, now sits in a silence that rings louder than any decree. But while the Lion of England retreats into the shadows of his own mind, the daughter of Isabella of Castile emerges from them. This is the era of the Shadow Regency. Catherine of Aragon, no longer the supplicant wife pleading for her dignity, has seized the apparatus of the state. With Thomas Cromwell rotting in the Tower and the reformers scattered like ash, Catherine's council, filled with loyalist lords and Spanish emissaries, now dictates the law. The annulment is not just dead, it is a crime for which the penance is total, absolute submission. And what of the woman who nearly wore the crown? Anne Boleyn, the night crow, finds herself not on a scaffold, but in a cage of a different kind. Stripped of her titles and her influence, she is banished to the damp corners of the realm, a living ghost whose name is forbidden at court.
Catherine does not grant her the mercy of a quick death. She grants her the lingering agony of irrelevance. The court has transformed into a miniature Madrid. Stiff black velvet replaces the vibrant Tudor silks. The click of the rosary replaces the scratch of the reformist's pen. As Catherine signs documents in the king's stead, the world realizes a terrifying truth. Henry VIII remains on the throne, but he is no longer the sovereign. The crown is being reforged in the fires of the Inquisition, and the heart of England now beats in rhythm with the bells of Rome. The streets of London no longer smell of Tudor coal, they carry the sharp, metallic tang of Spanish gold. In the damp cellars of the East End and the drafty halls of northern keeps, heavy crates bearing the seal of the House of Hapsburg are pried open under the cover of moonlight. This is not charity, it is the calculated financing of a holy revolution. Catherine of Aragon, once the discarded wife, has emerged as the ultimate architect of a clandestine insurgency.
Across the English countryside, the peasants who once grumbled in silence against the king's new laws are suddenly finding their pockets heavy with foreign silver. The Pilgrimage of Grace, which in another life was a ragtag band of desperate rebels, has been transformed into a professional militia. They no longer carry rusted pitchforks, they carry fine Spanish steel and banners consecrated by Rome. In the village squares, the Latin Mass returns with a terrifying opulence, funded by the bottomless coffers of Catherine's nephew, the Emperor Charles V. To the common man, the Queen is a saintly provider, who has brought the favor of God back to a starving land. To the remaining reformers, she is a silent, golden reaper. Neighbors watch one another through cracked doors, knowing that a single accusation of heresy, incentivized by a Spanish ducat, can lead directly to the gallows. The very fabric of English identity is being unspooled and rewoven with Iberian thread. Henry remains a prisoner of his own vanity in Whitehall, while outside his window, the soul of his nation is being bought coin by coin, until the England of the Tudors is nothing more than a memory. London, 1537.
The morning mist over the Thames no longer smells of coal and wet wool, but of heavy Spanish incense and the metallic tang of foreign steel. The Tudor rose, once a symbol of a unified England, is being systematically pruned. In its place, the jagged stalks of the Burgundian cross take root in the fertile soil of Kent and Essex. This is the era of the Great Erasure. Catherine's victory wasn't merely political, it was ontological. By her command, the English language begins to buckle under the weight of Castilian influence. The liturgy is no longer a site of rebellion, but a fortress of Roman orthodoxy. Monasteries, once slated for destruction by Cromwell, are instead rebuilt, not as English cloisters, but as grim Iberian citadels, where the shadows are long and the whispers are in Spanish. The vibrant, rowdy identity of the early Tudors is being bleached away. The court at Whitehall has become a silent, somber place of black velvet and rigid etiquette, mirroring the austere chambers of the Escorial. Henry's portraits, the images of the virile, defiant king, are quietly moved to the damp cellars, replaced by weeping Madonnas and the grim depictions of the suffering saints.
The commoners, bought with Spanish bullion and cowed by the presence of the tercios, find their very souls being remapped. To be English is no longer to be a subject of a sovereign island king, but a peripheral servant to a universal Catholic empire. Catherine watches from the shadows of her oratory, satisfied. She has not just saved the faith, she has rewritten the cultural DNA of a kingdom. England is no longer an island, it is an outpost. The fog over the English Channel no longer guards a sovereign realm. It masks the silhouettes of an approaching, unstoppable armada. With Catherine's cultural purge complete and the Tudor spirit systematically broken, the stage is set for the final, inevitable absorption. This is no longer a matter of marital dispute or theological debate. It is the birth of a continental monolith. By 1545, the island fortress of Henry VIII is nothing but a fading memory. The Spanish-funded insurgency and the calculated dismantling of English maritime institutions have left the gates wide open. Charles V, Catherine's nephew and the most powerful man in Christendom, does not arrive as a foreign invader, but as a sacred restorer of the old order.
As the majestic Spanish galleons drop anchor in the Thames, the double-headed eagle of the Holy Roman Empire unfurls over the white stone of the Tower of London. The bells of Westminster, which once rang for the birth of a Tudor prince, now toll for the death of English independence. The British Isles are formally annexed into the Hapsburg hegemony. The consequences are global and devastating for the future of the West. With England's burgeoning naval potential subverted to the service of Madrid, the Atlantic becomes an exclusive Spanish lake. There is no Elizabethan Golden Age, no legendary defeat of the Armada, for the Armada is now the permanent protector of London's docks. The geopolitical gravity of the world shifts irrevocably toward the Mediterranean and Central Europe. In this timeline, the sun never sets on the Spanish Empire, because there is no rival left to challenge the horizon. England is reduced to a northern province, its gold fueling a crusade that will consume the New World without opposition. The map of the world is painted in a single, unyielding color, imperial gold. Imagine a world map stripped of its crimson hues.
In this reality, the sun never sets on the Spanish flag because the English never had the chance to plant their own. The pivot point was Catherine's quiet victory,
a triumph that effectively erased the British Empire from the pages of the future. With England absorbed into the Hapsburg machine, the frantic race for the New World becomes a victory lap for Madrid. Gone are the stories of the Mayflower and the stubborn pilgrims seeking religious freedom. In their place, we see the rise of mission bells ringing from the Chesapeake Bay to the Great Lakes. The North American coast, once the birthplace of a revolution that changed the world, is now a seamless extension of the Spanish Main. There is no Virginia, named for a virgin queen who never reigned. There is only the sprawling territory of Florida, stretching northward until it meets the frozen wastes of the French frontier. The global economy shifts its axis. The Atlantic is no longer a contested battleground of privateers and naval geniuses like Drake or Raleigh. It is a private highway for the silver fleets. Without the competition of a maritime England, the Industrial Revolution, a spark born in the coal mines of a free Britain, is smothered in its infancy by a feudal, agrarian Catholic order. This is a world of rigid hierarchies and absolute faith, where the Enlightenment is not a beacon, but a heresy to be hunted. The English language remains a peasant's dialect, whispered in the shadow of a Spanish throne. The year is 1750, yet to an observer from our timeline, the world remains trapped in a gilded, Gothic twilight. With the Tudor line extinguished and the British Isles reduced to a Hapsburg dependency, the intellectual spark that ignited the Enlightenment never finds its fuel. There is no John Locke to champion the rights of the individual, no Isaac Newton to decode the clockwork of the heavens within a London laboratory. In this reality, the Royal Society was never founded. It was strangled in its cradle by the Holy Office of the Inquisition. The great silence descends over the European mind. Science is no longer a pursuit of discovery, but a humble servant of theology, permitted only within the narrow confines of dogma.
The printing presses, once the engines of democratic revolution, are now the curated tools of the Vatican's Index Librorum Prohibitorum. The radical notion that a man might govern himself, or that a sovereign serves his subjects, is dismissed as a damnable heresy, purged in the rhythmic fires of the auto de fe. Across the continent, the feudal order remains unshakable and stagnant. Without the competitive friction between Protestant and Catholic powers, the drive for industrial innovation is replaced by a divine devotion to the status quo. Wealth is measured in ancestral land and heavy tithes, not in the steam and steel of a rising middle class. The Enlightenment, that brief, brilliant window of human reason, is bricked over by the very stones Catherine of Aragon laid in her secret chambers centuries prior. The world does not progress, it merely endures. It is a continent of cathedrals and chains, where the sun never sets on the Spanish Empire, but the light of human inquiry is slowly, systematically extinguished. The corridors of Whitehall, once echoing with the boisterous laughter of a defiant king, have settled into a chilling, monastic silence.
The Tudor rose, which Henry VIII hoped would bloom for an eternity, has been grafted onto the sprawling, thorny vine of the Hapsburg dynasty. By the late 16th century, the transformation is total. The English crown, once a symbol of insular pride, is now little more than a glittering ornament in the treasury of Madrid. Catherine's victory, forged in the shadows of secret letters and Spanish gold, has reached its inevitable conclusion, the extinction of the very line she fought to preserve. Her daughter, Mary, sits upon a throne that is no longer sovereign, her eyes fixed on the horizon for orders from her Spanish cousins. The independent spirit of Britain, the spark that might have ignited a global empire, is systematically dismantled. In its place, a rigid provincial administration takes root. English is relegated to the tongue of the peasantry, while the court speaks the language of the Escorial. The great oak forests are harvested not for an English navy, but to bolster the Spanish Armada's eternal dominance of the seas.
As the final Tudor breath escapes a fading queen, there is no roar of a new era, only the scratching of a clerk's quill in Spain, recording the acquisition of a northern territory. The rebellion of the heart has ended in the colonization of the state. England, the once defiant island, has become a silent province of a universal Catholic monarchy. its identity buried beneath the suffocating weight of the Hapsburg eagle. The incense hangs heavy in the air of Winchester Cathedral, a scent that now defines a kingdom no longer its own. We see Catherine not as the discarded wife history remembers, but as the architect of a silent, devastating conquest. By the time her heart beat its final rhythm, the Tudor rose had been methodically stripped of its petals. The throne of Henry VIII, once a symbol of defiant English sovereignty, was now a mere footstool for the Hapsburg giants. History calls her the pious, the constant, the saintly queen. But as the Spanish banners snap in the cold wind over the Tower of London, we see the true cost of her devotion. She did not merely survive Henry, she dismantled him.
In her quest to preserve the sanctity of her marriage, she traded the independence of a nation for the validation of a ring. The Great Britain that might have ruled the waves was strangled in its cradle, replaced by a northern outpost of a Catholic empire that stretched from Madrid to the New World. The Enlightenment flickers and dies before it can ignite. The English tongue begins to soften, peppered with the cadences of Castile. Catherine lies in her marble tomb, hands folded in eternal prayer, looking every bit the martyr. But beneath the stone lies the woman who saw a crown slipping from her grasp and decided that if she could not be England's queen, England would cease to be itself. She won her war, she kept her title, and in doing so, she buried a kingdom.